Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome back once again to the VoV network, where great things are always happening. My name is Brian Murray, and I'm the co founder of the VoV network. I'm here with Mina, my partner in crime. So, we're getting ready for another great episode here this Saturday. And we have a very good topic I think we want to get into today. And this one really focuses in more on the individual than the relationship itself, I would say, because
Yeah,
it's one of those things where you know, you have to take care of self first. You have to, as I say, you got to love you before you can love somebody else. So
exactly.
that's what our focus is going to be. So we're going to be talking today about um, how to live a life with purpose and intent, and what that's all about, and how you go about growing yourself as an individual, but also making sure that as you do that, you're taking care of the relationships that you're in, the friends, family, etc., and all the people that matter to you in your life, and how important that all really is. So we are here. We're streaming live. Mina, you want to say good morning to everybody?
Good morning. Aloha. Let's
Yeah,
get to
and
it.
let's get to it. And check out Mina's new look, huh? Yeah, she's
Yeah, change
yeah,
it up.
change it up. You never know what you're gonna get, right?
Right.
So without further ado, we're gonna dive into it here. Let's talk about life with purpose and intent. Well, welcome back, everyone. If this is your first time joining us, welcome to the VOV Network. Our primary focus here at the VOV Network is giving you better ways to enhance, preserve, and cultivate the better relationships that are in your life. However, whatever that means to you, and whatever aspects of your life that you want to be able to use that. That's our mission, and that's our objective: is to give you ways, give you tools, give you other insights into ways to be able to better cultivate those relationships, keep them strong, keep them moving forward. Sometimes that's focused on the relationship itself. Other times, like today, we're going to get a little bit more into focusing on the each individual that's in the relationship and what that's about. Um, One thing that we do want to share today is we actually do have a live chat, and we're
We
going to
do.
pull that in now. So people will be able to see what's going on with the chat and with the content. So I think that's great. Mina, you already have a comment. I'll share that now.
Thank you, thank you. But again, with this application, if you don't say who you are, we don't know who it is that said it. So thank you
Yep,
though. I appreciate it.
yep. Thank you for sharing. So as we said, we want to get into today something talking about which I think is a very, very important thing because it really focuses more on the individual, than it does
Right.
the relationship itself. Because any relationship is only as strong as I think the individual partners or
Mhm.
people that are part of it, right? So what we wanted to talk about today, from living a life of true purpose, or living a life of with intention, and what that means, because most people out there have probably heard, live your life with purpose or find your purpose
Right.
in life is probably a better way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But this new fashion or new way of framing it, where people are talking about live your life with intent or intention or intentionally,
Right.
what's that about, right? Or is it the same as finding your purpose, or is it different? And those are some of the things that we're gonna start to get into today. Mina, what do you
Thank you,
want to add on
Telby.
that?
Thank you, Telby. Thank you, Telby. Love you. So, a lot of times we just, rolling through life, doing what we have to do, going to work, run of the mill stuff, on that rat on the wheel. Gotta go to work, gotta take care of the kids, gotta, go to church,
Hmm.
Wednesday night church, Sunday church, whatever you have going on in your life, you're doing your routine and it's hectic. It can be pretty hectic.
Yep.
But at the same time, have you thought about, what you're doing, and what you value, what's
Right.
important to you,
Right.
getting into, this purpose driven life. That there's a book, Purpose Driven Life, right?
Hmm.
So getting into what your priorities are, what your values, what your dreams are, and what is it you really want?
Right. Right. And as I said, coming into this, that's as an individual, right? So
Hmm.
one of the things that where I want to start with this is just kind of talking about From an individual standpoint, are you in that mode where it's you kind of just drifting through life?
Mm,
So it's just you don't really have an aim or a focus. It's just kind of okay. Well, whatever the day brings, and you just kind
mhm.
of roll with it. Um, I always use the term: are you driving, or are you just along for the ride? Right?
Right.
Because life you can be one of two ways when you look at that. So what we want to focus in today is really shifting your mindset and your actions as well to being the driver in your life, um, because and so that helps you get focused on what your purposes are, what it is that you intentionally want to do with your life, from a whether it's productivity standpoint or family or friends or whatever else it may be, self development. But you now have a target that you're aimed at versus just kind of
Mm.
remember it's like the old game that some of us are old enough to remember. It was Pong, right? The ball bounced around in the thing. You used to have to get it back, and it was just kind of aimlessly floating around, blip, blip, right? So is that you? I mean, for those of you out there, if that's kind of how you see your life, where you just kind of aimlessly are bouncing around, and wherever you end up, you end up, or are you more laser focused in
Mm.
trying to get somewhere and trying to achieve something? So that's the baseline to start from, I think.
And sometimes you think about it like you have dreams and desires that might require money or might be revolved around money, but we're not really talking about money, finances, or anything about that. Sometimes we get caught up in just trying to survive. So just trying to survive can take your attention away from this whole purposeful life.
Yeah.
So there is a way though to still be purposeful while you're even when you're struggling,
Mhm.
um, we're going to get into more things later, but yes, it's not about finances. It's not about getting rich or that big dream of having a Bentley or anything like that. I mean, I don't have
Mhm.
that dream of having a Bentley. I like Fiat myself, but
No,
I want a Fiat really bad.
that's a small step down. That's a huge step
Yes.
down. That's okay. As long as you're happy with it, right? That's what's
Yeah, that's what I
important.
want. Just a little Fiat.
So that's a perfect segue actually into what the next bullet point that I want to talk about, from the standpoint of what's important to you. And that's
Mhm.
why when we started this, and I really said we are focused on the individual today, because from a finding your purpose, living your life with intent, or and having those intentions that you want to pursue, you really have to understand and focus in on you, the individual, right?
Mhm.
And then just going back to what you were just saying, I mean, about the finances, or is it about getting the bigger house or having the Bentley and blah, 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 which we've talked about in some other episodes. That's that whole
Mhm.
either looking over the fence or keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing.
Right.
So, one of the things when you start to look at what is important to you is, mm, don't use any type of filter from the standpoint of what others think,
Mm.
because that's not what it's about, and it's also not what about society says. And when I say what society says, those are the norms, right? Because there's a lot of norms that are out there, and they shift over time. One of the examples that I was just thinking about from a societal norm is you go back 50 years, and if a woman wasn't married with kids by the age of 25, essentially she was, oh, but she's an old maid, right? You've heard that term before, right? 50, 60 years ago. But the norm has shifted from a society standpoint. But you think about the pressure that young women were under, in the 50s and the 60s, when that was still kind of going on, as how they were judged by
Mm.
society. So then their actions that they took tried to satisfy the norm that society expected.
Mhm.
So what I'm, asking everyone to do is, when you are thinking about, what's important to you, um, leave those things out of it. Don't look at it from what society expects of you. Don't think about, what others think, the judgment that's going to be there. Because no matter what choice you make, you're never going to satisfy everybody anyway.
No.
So you, right?
Mm.
You never,
Yeah.
not gonna happen. So you might as well make the best choice that you can. That's the best thing for you as an
Yeah.
individual, right?
For you
So,
yourself,
so,
right?
yeah. So that's really where I think where all of this begins, is taking that
Mhm.
time to say, what is it that is truly important to me,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Right.
What you value,
What,
what's
what,
Yeah, what's important to you, what your priorities are, what are your goals?
Hmm.
Those are important to you. What do you got to think about it? So it's something that is intentional. It doesn't just you don't just wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, I want to do this," and run with it. No, it's something you have to sit down and maybe even write it down and
Hmm.
think about what's important to you.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. I absolutely agree with
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
So on the next piece of it too, so obviously you sit there, you say, okay, what's important to me? Make a list, write it down. Don't
Mhm.
just think
Mhm.
about it and then because tomorrow or next week, if you didn't write it down, then you've probably lost some focus on it. You don't have the
Right.
content that you need. Right.
Right.
So I think that's important that you absolutely take the notes, take the time to actually write it down. Then, as you start to say, okay, now I know what's important to me, it's time to essentially put that into action. Frame it in some type of way where you have an action plan. And so, what does that look like? Right.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes it's going to require some adjustments that you make in your
Right.
normal behaviors, your normal routines. And I think you might have some things you want to share because I know you
I did. I
yeah.
did write some stuff
Tell,
down.
tell us a
Well,
little bit about that because I have some things too, but I
oh,
know
you
you did.
too?
Yeah.
Well, what I kinda wrote down was, like, thinking about, why do you get out of bed in the morning? What helps you to get out of the bed in the morning? What are you thinking about? That's how you kinda start thinking about what's important to you. What do you want?
Hmm.
And, another question you can ask yourself is, what is your purpose and what makes you feel alive? When you start thinking about trying to write this down, what is it that really truly makes you feel alive? What you like to do,
You mean
what
like getting up on
motivates
Saturday
you?
mornings and doing
Yeah.
this kind of thing? Yeah,
Yeah.
makes
Sometimes
you
it
feel
doesn't
alive.
really that don't work that way. Some mornings, we're not always both good to go, ready to go, "Let's go do this."
Right.
Sometimes one of us might be kinda dragging, might have a late
Dragging.
night,
Yeah,
might be going through a lot of stuff or might have a lot of stuff going on.
right.
So,
But
but all in all, it does drive us, we do like doing this. There is a purpose to this and we wanna do this, and it's not about money,
mhm,
it's about relationships and helping. It was really when we started this out, I remember it was really important, at least to me, that, relationships get better or relationships change or relationships are important and we're not just, um, floating through life trying to see, what does this feel like? How's this? And move on to
mhm.
this. What does this feel like? How's this? But not really looking at what we really want and desire and taking care of each other. And, I kind of want to go back to some of the 50 years ago,
Yeah,
and getting,
yeah,
into the sincerity of a relationship. So I
mhm,
remember we were, that was one of my goals.
yeah.
But
So
yeah,
we did talk a lot about that and the sense of community, which has obviously changed a lot
right.
also.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then one thing that I know you talk a lot about, Mina, is connection,
Yeah.
right? And
Connection.
and and, and relationship connections just across the
Hmm.
board.
Yeah.
And which is really ties into what we're talking about today because when you're sitting here and you're saying, what's important to me, what is my purpose in life? That's kind of the question too. What are you
Right.
connected to? What do you
Right.
feel connected to? Right.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm,
whatever those are the types of things that you need to start to guide yourself towards in your
mhm,
life. Because as if you feel more connected, you gravitate more toward it. That's where you're probably going to get the greatest
mhm.
satisfaction in your life. So that's a very, very important thing.
And you could see someone kind of going through these changes
Hmm.
when they're being intentional and may
Hmm.
not understand them or understand
Hmm.
what they're doing or why they're doing it. And you're just like, I just don't understand why you might judge or think some judgy way about them, but they're doing what's important to them.
Important to them.
So,
Right. Yeah.
maybe take a
And, it-
step
and it's
back.
it's funny because that was the very next point I wanted to get to. When you're going through this process of asking the question, what's important to me? You're making that list. Um,
Mhm.
express your true self in
Right.
those thoughts, right? Because
Mhm.
again, that's where you have to get past that fear of how you think people might judge you if
Right.
you do a certain thing. All that plays into it.
It
But the
does.
more that you sit there and you try to um, say, "Oh, I really want to do this, but no, if I do that,
Yeah.
so and so is going to feel this way about it, or
Yeah.
so and so might say that about it, or you're already limiting
Right.
your capability before you
Right.
even start,
Because
right?
you're worried about what someone's gonna think.
What somebody else thinks, or yeah, and all of that. So express your true self. Really, really focus in on when you're asking
Mhm.
the questions that Mina just put out there. What does it truly mean to you from a
Yeah.
self-expression? Who you are,
Yeah.
what it means to you in the world, how you want to be perceived in the world, and go with it.
Yeah.
Because not everybody's gonna like
No. And who cares?
no matter what you do, right? And
Mhm.
I hate to bring it up because I usually keep politics out of it, um, but and we've all gone through. I know, right? But I have to go back to it just from the standpoint of there was obviously a lot of angst
Go ahead.
on both sides of the fence with the whole Donald Trump thing, right? Just him as
Oh,
president,
wow.
right?
Who? Who?
Donald Trump when he
Who's
was
that?
president.
The
Donald
president?
Trump, yes, the president, right? So what I'm saying
What?
is, hang
No.
on. Anyway,
Sorry. Go ahead.
um, all I'm saying is, at the end of the day, even though he lost the last election, blah blah blah, and there were a
He
lot
can
of
come
people who
back.
disagreed with, right, with his
Mhm.
principles and the way he did things, but he still received 70 million votes. So meaning that yes, there were a lot of people who were displeased,
Mhm.
but there was 70 million of them who actually agreed enough with whatever
True.
it was to vote for him,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
So that's kind of my whole point with this thing is it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how far it is to the left, to the right, up, down. There are going to be those who are going to get on board and really appreciate and love what you do,
Mhm.
and they're going to always be those who are going to could be like Mina used to be the negative Nancy and be like, "That's never going to work, girl. You can't do
She
that."
comes back. She comes back
Yeah.
sometimes. Yeah.
So it's important just to stay focused and be true to yourself. Is a very important part of it.
Kinda like when we started this, if we go back to that again,
Mhm.
I know I was a little worried about what people would think. What about you?
Yeah, and I mean, and it's still conversations that we have because no
Mhm.
matter, I mean, obviously, once you put yourself into any kind of public light,
Mhm.
there's always going to be eyes on you. There's going to be
Yeah.
judgment. There's going to be comments and whatever
Yeah.
else that might happen. But it just is
Yeah.
what it is, right?
Like sex. We kinda steer away from a lot of
Right,
sex stuff.
right, exactly, because we don't want to be judged or labeled.
What
But
they gonna think about that? Sex?
no comment, right? So I think though that's the important thing is be true to yourself, ask the tough questions, and then make sure that you do write it down, write
Right.
down what you truly feel and express. So now
Mhm.
you've got that. So now you
Right.
need to develop some kind of action plan,
Right.
right?
Right.
As you go forward. One of the next pieces I think that's a key, and we've talked about this in several of our other episodes too, and it's about being present, right?
Right. Being
You know,
present.
you have to
And oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go
No.
ahead.
No, you go.
So being present from the standpoint of putting down the phone or stepping away from the computer and actually being engaged in
Mhm.
life,
Mhm.
relationships with people,
Mhm.
uh, all of that, because it's going to matter. Because that's when you're really being more your true authentic self, right?
Mhm.
When you've stepped away and kind of connected or
Right.
reconnected with the world and with people. So
Right.
be present.
Right.
Um, Old saying, but very true saying, and that's you got to smell the roses sometime, right?
Yeah.
Actually
Yeah, right,
pay
right.
attention to what's going on in the world. Be
Mhm.
in the moment
Mhm.
of what's going on. So be present. I think that's very important. We can get tunnel vision, and just like when you first started, we first started
Yeah.
the session today. You were talking about how busy our lives get,
Yes.
and you're running, and you got this to do, and that to do, and this to do, and
Right.
that to do.
Right.
You don't take that moment to appreciate just the world. It's like,
Right.
man, it's a beautiful sky today. Just something as
Mhm.
simple as that. And even though that may take you 15, 20 seconds, that's an enhancement to your day, to
Mhm.
your feeling, to your soul, because it resonates with you. all of that matters. But when you get your head down in this tunnel
Right,
vision,
right.
you're missing out on so much of what
Mhm.
you can reconnect to in life. I think that's important.
Right. And that's really aligning your actions accordingly with what was important to you, right? Those
Hmm.
people, that time. So making sure that you're there and you're present. And when you have the opportunity to experience that, experience it. Experience it. I mean,
Hmm.
I think about like being here in Hawaii. It's so beautiful. And we're here, but you gotta get out and see it. You gotta get out, see the mountain. You know, the mountains with the grass on them, not
Right.
like
Right.
Alaska mountains, but the mountains and get out and see the water and all that. And then at the same time, anywhere you go, there's beauty. It's not just Hawaii. You can go
Hmm.
anywhere and find beauty in
Anyway.
that place. So just getting out and experiencing it and when you're there, really intentionally looking and not just, oh, that's pretty and moving on,
Hmm.
but just actually experiencing, maybe taking in some activities also, but
Hmm.
aligning your actions accordingly with what was important to you when you looked at your values and um yeah.
Absolutely right. Another next step of that too is free will, because it's an old term, but free will is something I think has gotten lost
Mhm.
recently because people don't appreciate and understand. You have the free will to change or do or be uh, anything that you
Right,
want, right?
right,
Exercise your free will, right?
right,
Whatever the society is good at trying to put everything into a specific category or into a box, right? Oh, you must
right.
fit into
You
this
don't have to be
box.
there.
You don't have to be there, right? You have the free will. Step outside of that box, right? Is it a risk? Sure. But what in life isn't a risk, right?
Mhm,
Um, but yeah, use free will, step outside of the
mhm.
box. Um, take those things that you have that you've always had in your heart, in the back of your mind. I really have this idea, but I'm kind of afraid to do it. You know, just all
Yeah,
kinds of things like that, right?
yeah.
And and but those things matter, right?
Yep, put down that phone, yep, mhm.
Put down the
Be
phone, and
present.
then be present. And then this
Somebody
is
say
another great
quality
comment too,
time.
quality time, right?
Mhm, yep,
Um, so thank everyone who's providing the comments. That's awesome.
right.
But it is very important that you put down the phone, that you engage, get some quality
Mhm,
time, and appreciate the other things in life besides just the grind, because you
right,
get caught in the grind, right?
right, right.
And all the grind's gonna do is literally grind you up, right?
Yeah, keep you stressed.
Right.
Yeah. So when you're doing these things, you're really asking yourself how you spend your time, how you use your energy. Um, are they aligned with, like I said, with what was important to you? And do you need to change any? If you don't freaking like it, change it.
Mhm.
Change
Mhm.
it. Change what's going on. If you don't like it, it's not fitting, it's not aligned. Who are you to
Mhm.
change it?
Mhm.
Change it, you know? I mean, the thing that keeps you stuck in that spot is thinking, "Who are you to change it?"
Right.
But you have every right and free will, like Brian said, to change it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, you do. And I think that's one of the videos I did way back was talking about kind of the fear of change and how
Yeah, you
people
did.
fear having to change, because there's this thing about I got this routine and I
Yeah.
follow this road, and I don't want to veer off that road because that would be change, right? And so it's uncomfortable. But in this instance, you have to change. It's funny too because what the next thing that I wanted to bring in follows along the same line. That's about expectations, and we just did an episode on expectations.
Mhm.
But in this, you also need to realize you need to adjust your expectations, right? Really talking about, because what tends to happen is when things start to change, you need to change. You typically start to think of the negative pieces of what might happen. That's just human nature, right? Ooh, if I do that, then this might happen, or that might
That's why
happen.
you shouldn't change, right?
Right. So you're trying to justify in your own mind why you shouldn't change. So from an expectation standpoint, if you need to start shifting your expectations so that you can grow, be better, to become more engaged, that is pushing you out of your comfort zone, right? Which is change. But I say focus on the positive what ifs, because there's always going to be no anything you do differently. It could go right, it can go wrong. I mean, that's just the way it is. That's the yin and yang of everything we do in life.
Or you
So,
could backslide, right?
or you could backslide, right?
Mhm.
But set your expectations in a way whereas you are setting them, you are setting it focused on the positive. What
Right.
if this happens? So what if I do succeed? Right?
Yeah,
Then what?
exactly.
Right? Because now you're putting your mind in a forward state to
Mhm.
say, ooh, now I'm going to be at this level. And
Mhm.
when you do that with your mind, then the mind naturally thinks, what is the next step? And then what
Right.
is the next step? So
Right.
now you're actually progressing. But if you want to
Mhm.
focus on the negative what ifs, self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Right.
Right?
You won't do it.
You won't do it. It's not gonna happen, right? Because you've
Mhm.
already defeated
Mhm.
yourself before you
Right.
even start. Right?
That's that self-confidence. But also, if you do backslide or you don't do it because you let that negative come in too bad, forgive yourself and try
Yes.
again.
Yes.
Forgive
Yeah.
yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself. Just get back on it. Try again.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And when those things do happen, there's an episode that we had, where we talked about
Yeah.
needing to take a step back,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
that
yeah,
could be
yeah,
that moment,
yeah.
right? Because you're down on yourself. It didn't go the way you thought, right? So you're
Mhm,
feeling kind of overwhelmed or, dejected by it all.
mhm,
And then, so that's the moment where you need to, as I say, just be still,
mhm,
be reflective, uh, take a moment to,
mhm.
right? And say, okay, now this happened. This is what I've learned from it. And which is the best thing to do, just focus on
Right,
the knowledge and the learning that you
right.
take away from that situation, and then stand back up and
Yeah.
take the step forward. Right?
And why did you wanna make this change? What are the things that were important to you? Are they still important to you?
Mhm.
Why did I wanna do this? Okay, okay. Refocus, and if they still are important, very important to you, yeah, stand back up, do it again.
Do it again. Yeah, got to move forward. Right?
Mhm.
Always trying to adjust and move yourself forward is the key. Taking the important steps.
Right.
Um, Another thing I want to throw out there is each of us in our own ways, we have our own uniqueness. We have our own gifts. We have different things that we bring to the world because we're all a unique individual, right? Sometimes that people get down on themselves because either A, they don't understand, how they fit in necessarily because what makes them unique, or they think they're getting judged unfairly because of their uniqueness. So the one thing I want to chime in there is say, whatever it is, whatever you think, whatever your gift is, whatever makes you the unique individual that you are, you've got to learn to embrace that,
Yeah,
right? And truly be able to get comfortable with self, because that's how you take the next step forward especially from a purpose and intent standpoint, because it's really
mhm.
hard to truly identify what your purpose and intents are in life if you can't get your hands around who you are
Right,
individually, right? So taking that time to really focus in on, what are my true gifts? What is it that I
right.
bring to the table? Mina says, know your worth, know your
Mm,
value.
yeah.
All that's tied into that. And the moment it's just, trust me, it's this aha moment that happens when you get your
Mhm.
head around, hey, I got it. This is who I
Yeah,
am. This is what I'm about. This is what makes me tick. Now let me go out and apply some of that in the world in whatever way, and that's important to you. Uh, so I think that that's a big key, is to appreciate and understand and really
right.
embrace the things with you as an individual that make you unique. Yeah.
And remember, when you decide to be intentional, everybody's not gonna be on board.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not, and
And
it's
they're gonna be
okay.
They're gonna be some that have been there that are gonna fall off.
Mhm.
There are gonna be some that you didn't know even in your corner that are gonna get on board. So,
Yep, you'll be
mm,
surprised.
yeah.
Yep. Just keep going. Do what you have to do. Um, one more thing I wanted. Oh, we're gonna get to the slide that
Yeah,
you have.
just about ready. Go ahead. You got a
I
couple other
was
things
gonna
you wanna
say
get into?
something about, and I don't think they're on the. Let me double check. Being there's some tips about being intentional and being mindful of the social media you consume.
Mm.
And it can be a positive or it can be a negative. So when you're researching or trying to, be intentional, you might need to research some stuff, get on that social media or connect with people that are like-minded or, whatever you're trying to do.
Mhm.
But then we all know we can consume too much. Maybe you don't mean to, but you go down the rabbit hole. You get on maybe that negativity thing and you're going down the rabbit hole. And before you know
Mhm.
it, what happened to what I was supposed to be doing? You know, it happens. It happens to all of us.
Mhm.
Spend too much time doing that. So be mindful. Be careful about that.
Be careful, yeah. And you're so right about how we can overconsume because it's social media. It's no different than cheesecake.
Yeah.
You can have too much, right?
Never.
Right. So that's the thing is making sure you try to balance out what you are consuming because, and it's interesting because that from a what you consume standpoint, social media, friends, negativity, uh,
Yeah.
all of that that you take into your person um, is a very important part of who you become too, right?
Right. It is. It is.
So, but I think
Yeah.
a lot of people lose sight of that from that standpoint, and not understanding that um, that frames you from the inside out. What you're consuming, the different things
Yes.
that you're talking about, all of that, it
It's
all
not like you
matters.
forget it, you see it, forget it. No, it sticks with you.
Yeah,
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 it does. It,
mhm.
it absolutely sticks with you.
Every time my daughter says, "You know that song?" or "What do you know about that?" I don't know. I guess I saw it on the internet.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. So I think the comment there about right Mina was to say there's never too much
Cheesecake.
cheesecake. Yeah, I think that's what
Never
that's what
too
that
much
about.
cheesecake. I
Yeah,
like the mango, cheesecake
too sweet,
factory with the
too
mango.
sweet, too
Mm,
sweet.
mm. Yeah.
So what else do you want to share before we jump into? We do have a
Um
slide today, and it just kind of
Let's
summarizes what we've talked
do the
about.
slide because I think some of this might be on the slide. I don't wanna.
All right, very good. We'll pull that in right now. All right,
Ooh.
so we have a slide here we just brought into it, and it basically says steps to a life with intention. Right.
Mhm.
There's 6 steps on here, and I got this off of, the website, mentnotion.com. And I'll
Met
start.
like MET?
Yeah,
What
Mint,
notion?
Mint,
Oh,
Mint
mint notion.
Notion,
Okay.
yes. Um, so I'll start with number 1 on here, and it just says, "Visualize your ideal day." So we've all heard people say, the positive affirmations and all those kinds
Mhm.
of things, right? But framing is actually an important thing for your mindset, for what the activity that goes on in your mind, how you see things positively versus negatively. Because if you frame your ideal day in a way that you think, oh, the sky is falling and everything's going to go wrong today, well, guess what today is going to be like?
Sky's
It's going to be a
falling.
pretty.
It's
It's
gonna
going to
be
be a
that
pretty
day.
crap. It's going to be a pretty crappy day, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, it's funny because I think the last episode you were, maybe an episode or two ago, you were talking about there's enough negativity or things that just happen in life anyway. Why you don't? There's no need to go looking for it,
Right.
because it's gonna
It
happen.
really
It's just
is.
it's just part of
Yep.
life. So from a visualizing your day every day, what your ideal day looks like. uh, you got to have I think a visual mental plan of how you want to attack each day. So
Yeah.
whether that's just getting up in the morning and making some notes, sometimes it's maybe just a mental process that you go through. You know what you need to get done, and trying to keep that all in balance and in check from living with intent, because that's where the intention comes from. You
Yeah.
visualize what you
Yeah.
want to get out of the day. That's your intention, right? So
Yeah.
now as you go through the day, hey, check those boxes. Get through the things that you want to get done, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when that thing or person comes and throws that wrench in your day, even though
That
you
never happens.
visualized
What?
it to be ideal, choose to be kind. and go on with your plan for your day that you had. When you visualize your day, you visualized it a certain way. Go on with how you visualized it to be. Don't let them throw that wrench in your day and then you become somebody else.
Yep.
I'm just saying.
Yep. Yeah. Very, very, very true.
Not an
And
easy task, but
I like what you said about be kind and move on, right?
yes,
Because it's not
yes.
always easy to do in those
It's
situations.
not.
Uh, But
Deep breaths.
deep
Walk away.
breaths,
Walk
right?
away. Take a deep breath,
And the key
walk
there
around
too
it.
is to do it in a way that it continues to feed and support how you did visualize your day, right? Because you want
Right.
to be able to move forward and accomplish
Yeah.
the things that you had on your list. Sometimes people, like it or not, do get involved
Right.
um, with that, and
Mhm.
I love the comments and says, "Be the bigger person" in those
Yep.
situations,
Whoever
right?
said it.
Yeah, yeah,
You're
that's
right.
awesome.
Be the bigger
Yeah,
person.
be the bigger
I think I
person.
know it's Patricia. I'm saying it's Patricia.
Yeah. Well, it's important to definitely be the bigger person, and
Yeah.
as Nina says, pick your battles, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's just not worth it because all it's going to do is take you into a negative mind space, and
Right.
which derails you from your ideal day, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
So number two says implementing small daily habits. Now we all hear those things, and yeah, I know Mina's face is like, oh no, that sounds like accountability, which it is.
Daily habits.
Yeah. So habits,
Habits are easy. Habits are easy because you do them and you do them every day. After 21 days, they become a habit and you just
right,
keep doing them.
right.
But getting to the
Ne-
21,
Getting to the
get to the
21, right?
21.
Yeah. Because there's always an easy way or to slip and go, well, if I don't do it today, it's not a big thing. And
Yeah.
then you do that, and all of a sudden 3 days have gone by and you haven't
Yeah.
done whatever that particular habit is.
Yeah.
But the whole point, though, when
Procrastination.
they say implement small daily habits, is about discipline, A, right? Focus, because that's another thing that you're going to need to live your life with purpose and intent. You're going to need to, because things are going to happen to derail you, as we just talked about, from getting to where you want to be. So you're
Right.
going to need some discipline. You're definitely going to need focus, and that's what the point of the habits are. These are
Helping
not
you
going to be
focus.
big things, just small things that you choose to make sure you do every day, because it
Mhm.
starts to train your mind
Mhm.
with that intent, that discipline, and that focus. So that's the point. So whatever the habits are, that I'm not giving you a list of what they should be. You make those up for based on what's in your life and what matters to you. But just small things that do allow you to start to be more disciplined, more focused, and have some specific intentional things that you need to get through each day, and that creates essentially a forward momentum, right? Because you're doing it, you're doing it, you're doing it. As Mina said, a habit 21 days later, it's muscle memory at that point. You
Right.
almost, it happens, you don't even think about it, right?
How
Uh,
about like making a bed? Making a bed so that when you come home, your bed is made.
yeah,
That feels so good to come home to, like especially when I travel, to come home to my bed and it's made and just not having to worry about pulling the blankets up, getting it right,
right.
getting my pillows right. But it's just, it's a habit, but it just
Yeah,
feels good. And it's something small.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, some people do that anyway, but
yeah.
no.
Yeah, one of the best motivational speeches that I've ever heard was by a Navy admiral, and he's McRaven is his last name, and he talks about that. That was the name of his speech is "Make your bed every day," right?
Mhm.
And basically, that was his point. Mirrors exactly what we just talked about, and
Right.
his talk that he talks about. And he said, "The reason I'm saying make your bed every day is you start your day with an accomplishment."
Mm.
Because you accomplished first thing in the morning, you got your bed made. You've already set the stage for positive forward movement, right? So just by doing that every day, making the
Yeah.
bed, you've accomplished something positive. So the exact
Mhm.
same thing, right?
Yeah.
All right. Next one, number three says, know your priorities. And this is a tricky one, right? Because obviously you have individual priorities that you have out there in the world for you, and what's the priority. But then you have family, you have, if you're married, you have, kids and a spouse, and,
Right.
and you have the job, and, what are your true priorities? So know what your priorities are, and then write them down, and write them
Mm,
down in a way so that number one is number one and number two is number two.
mhm.
And then as you try to go about living your lives with intent and having a purpose, focus on the higher priority. I mean, it's pretty simple math when you think about it. But the hardest piece of it is knowing what those priorities are, taking the time to actually figure out what is on that list, you know, and then
Yeah, and
shortening the list.
consider making rest and self-care one of those priorities, or I mean,
Yes.
the top priority, because, you gotta take care of yourself before you can take care of others. So if you need that rest and self-care, you gotta take the time to do it.
Excellent point. And that goes back to, one of the videos we did in the past about,
Right.
self-care and that
Yep,
kind of thing.
self-care.
And
Mhm.
it's so important,
It
especially with
is.
everything that's going on in the world today, that you care for self. Because what was the analogy I used? Put your oxygen mask on first before you
Yeah,
help others. I mean, it's just,
yeah.
it,
You
it,
used that before?
we overlook that part
Yeah,
of
we do.
life because we think I got to do this, I got to do that for this person, that person, this person. But
Uh,
what about you?
yep.
Because if you are not there, healthy, mentally, physically, emotionally, then none of that for those people gets done because you're not able to do it. So you do have to
Mhm.
care for self, and that's a very, very, very important piece of it.
And the thing is, our we do this as experts, but experts in experience. So we don't talk about this because we don't know about it. We've experienced a lot of the stuff that we talk about.
Yeah. So I want to tell this is a personal family story. So I'm going to share, and some of my family members will probably go, "Yes, you should have shared that," and others may say, "No, I shouldn't have," but I'm going to share it anyway. So this actually goes back to my grandparents, and these on my dad's side, uh, two people that I absolutely loved them, and they lived very good lives. No issues or concerns there. But talking about knowing your priorities is kind of what I want to tie this back to. My grandmother was a school teacher. She taught first grade for 30 years. She's very dedicated to her craft. She loved teaching. My grandfather was a man's man. He could build a house, he could tear a car apart, he could do all these different things. He also had a military background. And because of his work and her work over the years, they had always planned when they retired that they would travel and see the world and do some travel together. He was able to retire a few years earlier than she was. She was determined to get to her 30 years of teaching before she retired, which she did. So she made it to her 30 years of teaching. And unfortunately, within just a few years after she retired, he passed away.
Oh,
So they
man.
had been talking about this all of their lives, what their priority was to do this travel, to get out and to do it, but they never really got a chance to do it, right? Because of just how things played out. So that's when we say know your priorities. What are they? Or who are the people that are
Mhm.
involved in it?
Right.
And what can you do to prioritize some of those things so that they happen sooner than later? Because life changes. I mean,
Yeah.
just look at the 2 years almost we're coming up on now with
Mhm.
COVID, how that's
Yeah.
changed our world, right? So anything can shift and change. So if
Yeah.
there's a way that you can prioritize what it is you want to do, that you want to get accomplished, uh, take action,
Yeah.
and try to do it sooner than later, because
Yep.
it can make all the difference in the world from that standpoint. Uh,
Enjoy the time that you have here. Be intentional. A lot of people didn't make it this far, and we're still here. We're
yeah.
fortunate.
So it's interesting because that generation, especially my grandparents, they would take a lot of pictures. So they got the big photo albums. You go
Yeah.
through when you get home, and she has tons of pictures in the photo album from her travel.
Yeah.
Because you have to think about, as a school teacher, they have the whole summer off.
Yeah.
So she was able to just travel during the summer, but he couldn't because he had his commitment to his job, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's why the agreement was at some point when we both retire, we'll
Do it
travel together,
together.
but
Oh.
never had that opportunity. So I just bring that up to say,
Mm.
truly get a grasp on what your priorities are and use that as a true motivator and a focus for living your life with purpose and with intent. Because that's when you get to that road and down it, and you're like, I should have, I wish I could have,
Yeah.
those I wish I could have, should have. Uh, and sometimes you can't turn back the clock. So
Yeah. You're right.
yeah. So anyway, I wanted to share that just as a something for me that kind of always said, you know what, if I can figure a way, I'm going to try to do it now versus
Right.
later. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Enjoy it now.
yeah. And anything on
Well,
that one before we go to number four, Mina?
that was priorities, right? No, I'm good. I'm good.
All right. So number four, get rid of clutter.
Ha! Did you hear them? Did you hear them, Brian? Did you hear that?
Yeah,
Who wrote this article? Get
clutter,
rid of clutter.
clutter.
I'm getting
So
better at that. Wow, now that I'm older, because it's like if I'm getting better at it, but not where I need to be. But the thing is, if you get rid of clutter, it's like when you have clutter. Like I don't have clutter everywhere, but holding on to things and having too much stuff. Since I move so much, I tend to get rid of stuff before I move. I just like
purge. Yeah,
just purge, right? But there are
right.
some things I haven't gotten rid of. But and then even in the living space, like I don't like to have a lot of furniture in the middle. Just it's too much for me now these days. I just like to be have a big
Open.
open
Yeah,
space and be able to
yeah,
move through it and everything.
yeah.
But over the years, I wasn't that way.
Right.
But it's like it clutters to me, it feels like it clutters your mind. Like it's just too much. And one day you wake up, you're like, this is too much. Gotta get rid of this stuff. Let me
Yep.
start. But
I could not agree more.
yeah,
Simplifying and
yeah.
not necessarily
Sim-
downsizing on space, but just clutter.
yeah, the stuff in
Now,
the space. Yeah.
let me be clear about clutter. And I'm going to chime on top of this because obviously everybody's mind immediately goes to stuff.
Stuff.
Clutter also involves people,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So there are certain people that as you start to transition and go on this journey,
Yeah.
they can't go with you. I'm sorry.
No.
They cannot because they are
Cannot.
going to be the naysayers, the negative. They're the ones who are going to try to pull you down, hold you back,
Right.
and all of that. And that's unfortunate,
Yeah.
right? But
Yep.
that is the reality of it. So I wanted to bring that up when you talk about clutter.
Mhm.
Clutter applies to people in your life as
Yeah.
well. And figuring out who they are and everything is
Yeah.
very important.
Sometimes those people though don't realize that they're clutter, right?
Mhm.
And once making this transition, they want to make it with you, right? So they want to change their behavior, at least with you. Maybe not with everybody else, but at least with you, they want to be different. I don't know if you take them with you or you leave them behind, but I have seen that.
Yeah. And then let me be clear on leaving behind. I'm not saying that completely cut this person out of your life. But
Yeah.
if you start a new habit or you start a new job, if you start
Yeah.
working out regularly and they're that person who's like, that's not gonna do you any good. I don't know why
Not
you work
gonna do it.
out, right? Then obviously that's not the person you want to invite to the gym with you when you go,
Yeah.
because all they're gonna do is have a lot of negativity. Does that
Yeah.
mean you still can't watch the ball game with them on Sunday because you guys have that in common, whatever else it might be? That's fine.
Mm.
But this also goes back to boundaries,
Right.
right? Because this is where you have to stand up and say, you know what, we can still watch the ball game together, but I need to set a boundary with you that when you
Mhm.
start trying to cross this line of bringing me down because of this that I'm
Right.
doing, we're
Mhm.
not having that conversation, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
uh, that takes a lot of courage to be able to stand and build that wall from a
Right.
boundary standpoint. But we have an episode on boundaries, and
Right.
that's very important, right? Communicate what your boundaries are and why. And again, it's all about feeling.
Mhm.
When you do this, this is how you make me feel. This is what it
Right.
feels like. I don't want that or I don't need that. So I
Mhm.
need to place a boundary on that. And
Right.
if they can't understand it, they'll remove themselves from the picture. You don't have to
Mhm.
worry about it. But you have built a boundary that you need to maintain your own personal
Mhm.
mindset and mind space and how you feel so you can continue to be positive and productive in your own life. Nothing wrong with that. That's self care at the
Right.
end of the day. And that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So, yeah. So clutter is
Ooh, stuff and people.
stuff and people, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it's funny because, and I'm the worst. I can be a pack rat because I always go, "Ooh, this pack of screws. I might need this for something someday." And they go in a drawer, and all of a sudden, I open the drawer 5 years later, and there's 25 different packs of screws in there from leftover this, leftover that, right? But they do come in handy. But anyway, so
When you need them.
when you need 'em, if you need them. But I'll share another little personal story. I moved, as Mina was talking about, moving August of last year, so it's been more than a year, and
Wow.
still to this day, and you can't see it in the image in the corner of my room here. There are six
Oh my
of those
goodness.
medium-sized moving boxes stacked in the corner. Yes, they're still there, and so clutter, essentially from the standpoint of my point being, whatever's in them, obviously I don't really need it
In
because
a
it's been
year.
stacked in the corner for over a year, right? Uh, so being able to declutter, to minimalize what you need. If you don't need it, you don't wear it. You pull it
Mhm.
out of the closet and go, "Oh, I really like that shirt. When was the last time you wore it? 2012. I think you can probably donate that one, right? You know,
Yes.
yeah.
I'm
So
so guilty. I have a shed and I have Rubbermaids. So, they're not in boxes. They're neatly packed in there. And then, oh yeah, until you open the box. But I have a little cubby over here in the behind the kitchen, and that's where I have a few boxes. But I've been looking at it saying, I need to throw all that out. Whatever's in it. I think I have some paperwork in one, but yeah, yeah, I can do that. I can carry that with me as I go from state to state or house to house,
right,
and I need
right.
to just like, do I really need these? Like, I'm always afraid to throw away all the military paperwork and like I'm
Yeah.
not even
Well,
in
stuff like
anymore.
that. Yeah, I get
Yeah.
that. But yeah,
But I still
obviously, as I
have it.
said, there's some things in those boxes that I could probably get rid of because I
Yeah,
obviously
why
don't need it.
not?
So that's declutter. That's a very important one.
Yeah.
And then let's wrap up with the last two on here, which
Okay.
kind of tie together, but also are separate because that's be intentional about your health and your diet.
Mhm.
And obviously, that I mean, it's just common sense, right?
Yeah.
What they
Mhm.
mean by that. But then for health and diet, that ties back to what Amina was saying about self care. That's all
Mhm.
part of that. Um,
Mhm.
and you can't be there for anyone, yourself or anyone else, if you're unhealthy.
Right.
And that's why it's important because, we all say, I'm too busy to go to the doctor. I'm too busy to do this. I'm
Ooh,
too busy to work out.
that's
I'm just
another
going to
one.
eat fast food every day because I only have 20 minutes to try to eat lunch. So I can't eat a healthy lunch. Um, and what does that lead to? Poor health,
Mhm.
whether it's physically, emotional, or mentally tired because you're not able to sleep.
Mhm.
So all of that impacts who you are as a person. So then you
Right.
still can't go out and do the things for yourself or for others that you
Right.
think are so important, right?
Because you're not at your best.
You're not at your best. Right?
Mhm.
So very important that they are very intentional about taking care of
Mhm.
your health and your diet. Very important things.
Mhm.
And then number six, oh boy, be intentional about your finances.
That's right.
Yeah. So
Procrastination is the finance killer.
what do you mean by that?
Oh, well, when you procrastinate, like if you're in, you don't have to be in a bad situation, but when you procrastinate on bills, we've talked about this on another one I talked about. it makes the situation worse. Like, you don't
Mhm.
call them, you don't communicate with them. I mean, maybe you're behind, but communicate with the person or the company that you owe.
Mhm.
Maybe you're not behind, but you're procrastinating. Now you are behind because you
Mhm.
procrastinated. But
Mhm.
that all gives you more stress,
Correct.
to have that hanging over your head. So that's what I mean by procrastination is a finance killer. It will put you in a bind.
Yeah.
So be intentional. And before you buy, ask why. That will keep you from buying sometimes when you don't really need. Why?
Correct.
Why do I want to buy this? Like,
Why
I
do
want
I?
the Fiat, right? Why do I want a Fiat? I have a car. Why?
Why? Hmm? What's the why behind it?
Yeah.
So the other piece of the finance from a intentional standpoint has to do with it goes all the way back to the very beginning when we were talking about
Mhm.
what's important to you, what are the goals, what is the purpose that you have in your life, because now that you've kind of identified what those things are, some of them may take money, which means you need to have a
Right.
plan to be able to achieve these things,
Right.
right? Uh, so that's where it all ties back to.
Mhm.
Be intentional about your finances.
Right.
So, but how can you be intentional about where you should spend money, where you should save money, what you should save money for, if you don't know what the plan is to begin with? Meaning,
Right.
what is the purpose? What is my intent? And just like
Mhm.
you said, the question about the car, that's right. Do I really need
Why?
why a second car? Right?
Yeah.
What is the purpose? What is the intent behind that? Not saying it's right or wrong.
Right.
Once you settle on the justification for you in your case, if it makes sense, now you have to then financially say,
Mhm.
okay, these are the steps I need to take to be able to not only get it, but then maintain it going forward, right? Because
Mhm.
it's twofold. It's the initial step of getting, but then you also have to look at maintaining it, right, over
Mhm.
whatever period of time, right? So all of that comes into play from that standpoint.
Right.
But that's the summary of what we wanted to talk about today. Just getting into steps that you can use in your life to live life with intention. So visualize your ideal day, implement small daily habits, know your priorities, get rid of clutter. And remember, that's stuff
And
and
people.
unfortunately people. Be intentional about your health and your diet, and be intentional about your finances. If you can do these three, excuse me, three, I cut it in half. These six things, then you are down the road of being able to identify what the purposes are in your life, live a life of intent, be more intentional about your day to day, week to week, month to month. In other words, you go from just going along for the ride to actually driving. You're more in control of all of the things that are happening. And remember, we're talking about you individually primarily first. Once you've gotten this all sorted out for yourself, then you can start to apply some of these same principles to your you and your significant other, you and your family, you and your kids,
Mhm.
you and whatever else you have in your life. Because if the principles work across the board, it's not just for
Mhm.
you; it can be applied in any way. But the foundation of it all is you as an individual.
I wanted to go back to number 4 for a second
Okay.
about the people. I just wanted to say that the when you get rid of clutter and if it's people, that I don't really believe that's such a bad thing. I don't want to give the impression that because there may be someone that didn't really mean good for you or didn't really have your best interest at heart, and you might need to cut that person. I mean, maybe, depending on what that relationship was or that friendship was, or, that family member that did you harm or continue to do you harm as long as you have them in your life, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
as you declutter to make your life more intentional, um, yeah, that to what's important to you, your priorities, your values, your dreams, that might mean that that person might need to be gone. I'm just saying.
Amen. We'll go with that. Amen.
Mm. Mhm.
So that wraps up the summary for today. I think it's very important that we try to here at VOV Network. What we want to do, obviously, is continue to give you ways to more insight. Just make you think. It's that aha moment.
Yeah.
Because again, me and I, we're not clinical psychologists or anything like that, but we
Mhm.
have a wealth of knowledge and a lifetime of experience. So we want to share these things and then hopefully help and guide you to ways that you can improve and better uh, you as an individual, but then also the relationships that are associated with you in your life and living a life of purpose, identifying what your purpose is or are, if there's a list, and then being intentional about how you go about that. That's one of the most important things I think you can ever do in life
Mhm. Mhm.
because it's going to play out over time, no matter how you look at it, right?
Mhm.
And you can either continue doing what you're doing now, and that's going to play out to a certain result, or you
Mhm.
can start to make some changes today, and that's obviously going to play out to a
Mhm.
different result. And
Make
we believe that taking the action now to find those purposes, to be more intentional, that's going to get you greater satisfaction
right,
across the board, whether it's individual satisfaction,
right,
relationship satisfaction, life satisfaction.
right.
But that's what's important.
Make sure they align with your actions are aligning with those things that you or say that are important to you, that you decided were your priorities or your goals or your dreams. Make sure the actions that you take align with them. And if they don't and you aren't staying aligned with that, forgive yourself for it and move on. Try to continue doing what you needed to do to align them.
Yep, could not agree more.
Mm.
Well, that's all I have. The only last
Thank
thing I
you.
want to say is in all of it, no matter where you are, if you just start the journey, if you're thinking about the journey, whatever it is, be present in it
Mhm.
because that is going to be the key piece to of your success. You have to be present, be in the moment, truly appreciate um, what it is that you know you're doing and all of that. It's really going to make a difference in your life.
Yes.
And
Thank
thank you for the comments.
you,
We appreciate it. Yeah.
Shelby.
Mina, final
Maybe.
thoughts before we get out of here.
Thank you, everyone who watched, participated. Continue to participate, please, online. Make your comments, questions. People love to see the comments. You can give back information that will help them also. So we appreciate you and see us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, share. We're so appreciative of you all for supporting us.
Yes, absolutely. So, well, everyone, this is going to wrap up this week's VOV Live. And again, get out there, think about it, figure out what your true purpose in life is, and be very intentional about making those things happen.
Yeah.
It will change you and it'd be a great benefit to all those around you. So, make that your mission. And hopefully, you found this useful today. If you did, as Mina said, like, share with others if you think there are other people that you know that will benefit from it. And then on our YouTube page, please join us there and subscribe. We're really trying to grow our community on
To build
YouTube.
it.
Yeah, so get over there and subscribe on YouTube. We greatly appreciate it. VOV Network is how you'll find us. So until the next episode, which is going to be a unscripted, right? Coming
Yeah.
up on Tuesday.
Unscripted.
And so until then, everyone have a great weekend. Uh, Again, this was great knowledge, great information. We enjoyed
Mhm.
sharing it, and hopefully, you saw some benefit from it. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
Aloha.